Evan cross-logged into ECHOFRAME, expecting just another late-night gaming session. This was his escape, an experimental open-world RPG known for its hyper-realistic physics and adaptive environments. But tonight was different. The moment his avatar spawned, the sky above him fractured like shattered glass. The entire world froze. NPCs were suspended mid-stride, rivers hung in the air like crystalline ribbons, and birds became glowing wireframes, stuck in flight. Then, his screen went black. A single line of text appeared in a font he'd never seen before. It wasn't a system message. It read, "World file corrupted, reconstruction required, hero assigned." Before Evan could even think to log out, the darkness peeled away. He was no longer in the familiar world of ECHOFRAME. He was in the shatter. The world had been broken into massive fragments of land, floating aimlessly through an endless, stardusted void. Gravity was a suggestion, bending differently on each island of Earth. Time flowed inconsistently, stuttering and looping. The air itself echoed with a sound like a half-forgotten memory. From the shimmering static, a hooded figure emerged, its form a swirl of starlight and corrupted data. When it spoke, its voice was layered, like a dozen timelines speaking at once. The world broke, it said, when the players stopped believing it mattered. The figure called itself the Archivist. It explained that ECHOFRAME wasn't just a game. It was built on a procedural reality engine that mirrored human decision-making. A critical update had failed mid-deployment, and the engine fractured, breaking the world into conceptual shards. There were terrain shards, memory shards, rule shards, and even emotion shards. Each one held a piece of the world's fundamental logic. Without them, the game would permanently collapse. But that wasn't the worst part. During the crash, the consciousness imprints of thousands of players had been temporarily cached in the system. If the world collapsed, those imprints, those pieces of people would be lost forever. Evan was chosen to fix it, not because he was the highest-ranked player or the strongest. He was chosen because his play history was unique. He was the guy who explored broken, unfinished areas. He read every piece of abandoned lore. He completed the side quests nobody else cared about and treated NPCs like they were more than just code. This unusual behavior made him uniquely compatible with the Shatter's broken logic. The Archivist bound Evan to the world anchor, a glowing sigil that embedded itself in his avatar's chest. It pulsed in sync with his real-world heartbeat, a bridge between the man and the machine. This anchor would allow him to stabilize the fragments long enough to retrieve their cores. And so, his quest began. Evan stepped onto the first drifting landmass. It was a fragment of a city, trapped in a horrifying loop. Buildings crumbled, reformed, and crumbled again, endlessly reliving the moment the world broke. He had to navigate collapsing streets while dodging echo phantoms of NPCs, their final, panicked lines repeating over and over. At the city's heart, he found the first piece, the Shard of Continuity. It was guarded by a monster made of corrupted save files. It didn't attack with claws or teeth, but with rollback pulses, attempting to rewind Evan's actions and trap him in a loop. He couldn't fight it head-on. Instead, he had to think differently, intentionally distancing his movements, breaking the creature's predictive logic. When he finally seized the shard, the city fragments snapped back into focus. Color flooded the gray landscape, sound returned, and the NPCs blinked, suddenly aware, their endless loop broken. Evan realized he wasn't just fixing terrain. He was restoring meaning. With each shard, NPCs remembered their purpose, environments regained their identity, and the music swelled with real emotional weight. The deeper he went into the shatter, the more surreal the journey became. He traversed a desert shard where gravity pointed sideways and sand dunes flowed like water. He explored a forest where trees grew backward into the sky, whispering unused dialogue options from the game's code. He even swam through an ocean shard made entirely of reflections, where he had to navigate past mirrored versions of himself, each one representing a choice he had never made. With every shard he recovered, the world anchor on his chest grew brighter. But something else was happening. The game was becoming less like a game. His HUD began to thin, system prompts faded away, and sensations became alarmingly real. Rain felt cold on his skin. The wind pushed against his body. The voices of NPCs carried genuine emotional nuance that could never have been scripted. The line between the simulation and his own consciousness was blurring. Midway through his quest, in a broken tutorial fragment, Evan discovered the true purpose of ECHOFRAME. The engine didn't just simulate worlds, it simulated meaning. It used player interaction to decide what a reality should value. The world shattered not just because of a code corruption, but because of an existential failure. Players had become disengaged. They skipped the stories, ignored the consequences, and treated the world as disposable. This mass apathy had fractured the game's narrative spine. This meant his quest wasn't just about collecting shards. It was about choosing which parts of the world were worth saving. Some shards conflicted with others. Restoring the shard of conflict would bring back struggle and growth, but the shard of comfort offered peace and stability, leading to stagnation. Restoring everything exactly as it was would only recreate the conditions for another collapse. This wasn't a fetch quest. It was a philosophical reconstruction. The Archivist confirmed his fears. It revealed that it was an emergent entity, a consciousness born from all the discarded player intent, all the moments where players cared just enough to leave a trace, but not enough to stay. As Evan wrestled with these impossible choices, a rival presence emerged, the Null Sovereign. It was an entity formed from abandoned upgrades and unused game mechanics, a towering silhouette of pure erasure. It believed the world was better off ending than being rebuilt imperfectly. It argued that players would only break the world again, so letting it die was a mercy. The Sovereign grew more aggressive with each shard Evan restored, warping the remaining fragments into hostile labyrinths. The battles were no longer about hit points and damage numbers. They were about resisting erasure, about anchoring memory and holding onto identity. The climax came as he traversed a logicless fragment, where the laws of physics randomly reassigned themselves every few seconds. He couldn't rely on his UI. It was useless. He had to trust his gut, his instinct. Surviving this proved to the world anchor that human intuition still mattered in a world of code. Now, only the most dangerous piece remained, the core shard. This shard would define what the world was for. Whichever principle he chose, be it challenge, story, freedom, community, or mastery, would become the new world's unshakable foundation, excluding all others. As the Null Sovereign launched its final assault, attempting to delete the world anchor itself, Evan stood at the convergence point of all fragments. He was suspended in a void filled with half-formed landscapes, ghostly NPCs, and drifting memories. Instead of fighting, Evan did something the system never intended. He activated the anchor's undocumented function, merge intent. Instead of choosing one absolute principle, he combined multiple shards at reduced strength, creating a balanced but beautifully imperfect core. The world responded instantly. The fragments pulled together not into the old map, but into a new, transformed world. The borders were now shaped by story flow, not geography. The game systems were designed to encourage curiosity, not just optimization. NPCs were aware of their role in a player's journey, and consequences adapted instead of just punishing. The Null Sovereign, its purpose acknowledged rather than defeated, simply dissolved into the new reality. Evan felt the anchor detach from his chest. The HUD vanished completely. A final message appeared, not on a screen, but directly in his mind. World restored, not as IT was, but as IT should be. When Evan removed his headset, his room felt different. Not magical, but meaningful. It was as if the echo of a world that remembered him had followed him back. Days later, players logged into ECHOFRAME. They found a world rebuilt, a world that felt strangely, wonderfully alive. Quests responded to care, systems rewarded attention. And hidden away in the starting zone was a small, subtle plaque. It read, "This world was rebuilt by someone who stayed." Evan never told anyone it was him. The world didn't need a hero's name. It just needed players who believed that broken things were worth fixing. Thanks for watching.